Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Top 10 instalment from Whitewick's Abandoned Railways. When we first started making films, it soon became apparent to us that equally as important as the abandoned stations are the structures that are also used to carve their way through the landscape. Tunnels in particular remain a fascination for us. As Graham Bickerdike recently suggested to us, perhaps it's because these works of art are mostly hidden from view that we find great appeal in them. So let's take a look at our top 10 tunnels from 2019. Coppet Hill Tunnel, also known as Lydbrook Tunnel. It's situated on the Ross and Monmouth Railway and it comes in at number 10 on our list. Built in 1873, as the line here crosses the River Wye immediately north of Lydbrook, it carved its way into Coppet Hill Tunnel. A 630-yard tunnel which is the longer of the two on this stretch of the line. The tunnel is straight for over 300 yards before it curves tightly to the west. In at number 9 is the first tunnel along the Cromford and High Peak Railway. It's only a short tunnel of around 113 yards, but at 190 years old and being quite unique, we decided for it to make an appearance on our list. Part of our love for the railways revolves around these routes and connections that these lines made, and this being a very early example of a railway tunnel, it was quite a fascination for us. Ladies and gentlemen, Hopton Tunnel. Blue Rock Tunnel sits in the Forest of Dean on the Bullo Peel Railway. Whilst the line itself was built in 1810 as a horse-drawn tramway, it wasn't until South Wales Railway purchased the line in 1849 that the two further tunnels were required for GWR's broad gauge. Both Bradley Tunnel and Blue Rock Tunnel were opened around 1854. When we arrived, we were told that the door on the southern entrance had been locked for a number of years now, and the northern entrance was completely bricked up. I think Matt's been trying to get in there for 38 years, you said?
Something like that, yes.
And so, to our surprise, when we strolled up to it, it was completely open. So we strolled in. A beautiful tunnel and one of the favourite settings for our adventures. So, in at number 7 we've grouped a couple of tunnels together here because they were part of one trip and pretty much replicate each other. The Market Harbour to Northampton line was built in 1859 and later doubled. Subsequently, this trip gave us 4 tunnels. There's the 1879 tunnel and there is the 1859 tunnel. One of each set is currently used as a cycle route. We managed to have a peek at the abandoned ones as well, which are still in pretty good condition. The brickwork inside the tunnels is a sight to behold, especially around the shaft bases. A worthwhile trip if you can get to this part of the world. Keele, as with Silverdale, its close by neighbour, is one of those rare treats with some tracks still in situ and sits in number 6 on our top 10 tunnels from 2019. Used as late as the mid-1990s for freight, very little has changed here apart from nature's attempt to reclaim the Iron Road. The tunnel is straight and extends for 321 yards. Clearly the line was built for 2 tracks but is now a single track that remains to have moved closer to the centre, standing high on some significant ballast. Whilst the line never really thrived on huge passenger numbers, it certainly served its purpose with regards to freight. In the early 60s it carried around 500,000 tonnes per year. This was a real treat for us, blue skies and the most ideal setting. In at number 5 is Gelli Felen Tunnel, which sits on the beautiful heads of the Valley Line. We wish we had longer to explore here, as there was a lot to see, including both the double tunnels at Critch and Gelli Felen. These were originally carved as single bore tunnels, opened in 1862. The second of each was opened in 1877. It's the original tunnel that remains open today, and despite some inclement weather, we eventually found a route down. If you like exploring, this really is the line for you. The tunnel is stunning, and as is the embankment immediately before, along with its culverts. In number 4, we're back in Wales again for Tynygraig, and yep, you're going to have to forgive the pronunciation. Tynygraig sits next to Caradog Falls Halt on the Manchester and Milford Railway. The tunnel carved its way under a spur of land and a road through the village. We were fortunate enough to have permission to enter via the landowner's garden. We were accompanied with him right up to the entrance. At first we thought he was going a bit mad, as there was no tunnel to be seen, but eventually it revealed itself, hidden in the bottom of his garden. Whilst it was built mainly with blue brick, it had a unique arch lining throughout, exposing a lot of the rock face. Sadly, the line succumbed to significant flooding in 1964 and was closed by 1965. This was one line we would agree that would be extremely useful right now. In at number 3, something completely different. And of course back to tramways, which tend to hold more secrets owing to their age. This little line from the village of Critch southwards was built in 1841 and was home to 2 old tunnels.
I don't know if I'm doing the right thing here or not, but it's not a drop, it's a slope.
We visited the area here with Martin Zero back in the summer, and the trip didn't disappoint. High up on the hill above the incline for the actual line itself was a short tunnel. Seemingly pointless again, it could easily be maybe carved for a 10-foot cutting. Nevertheless, it left us with a gem of a find. We found our way inside, and it opened up even more questions for us. Why the stepped permanent way? Why the tight curve? And of course, what was this strange fungi? In at number 2, we're back in the Forest of Dean for another little railway. And by little we mean very old tramway. The Forest of Dean is littered with them, much to our delight. This little gem was a massive surprise. Found when we were searching some old maps, we had no idea what it was for. A tight radius going under a main line, but significant enough to carry some sort of alignment. As it turned out, it was indeed a tramway for a local quarry. This underlined why we enjoy exploring. So much of our infrastructure has gone now, but when you get the opportunity to discover something like this you weren't expecting, it makes the whole trip worthwhile. And in at number 1, we have the Blorenge Mountain Tunnel, which is part of the Hills Tramroad. Okay, so there's 4 up here on the mountain, but this was probably the highlight of the trip for us. Our journey started at the Llanfoist Incline Tunnel, and from there we headed northwest across the mountain to around 400 metres above sea level. The tunnel once again seemed a tad pointless, perhaps protection from a possible landslip above, but either way, 80 yards and just a few feet from the soil above it. So why such a small, short tunnel in our number 1 spot? Probably because this whole journey, including the 3 other local tunnels, were an utter joy. The landscape here had so much to offer, and I can't recommend exploring this area enough. Right, so that is it for our top 10 compilation top videos.
For 2019.
For 2019. It's probably 2020 when you're watching this, because I think we're putting this out on Wednesday.
I think so, yeah. That's New Year's Day, isn't it?
Yeah, so Happy New Year and all that. Hope your 2019 has been prosperous and fun.
And adventurous.
And here's to a good 2020 for everybody. Hope you've enjoyed everything we've done. Lots more planned for 2020. What should people leave in the comments this time?
Have you got a tunnel in your back garden?
Yeah, because we can
come visit.
I mean, like a historic railway tunnel.
Yeah, not just a random tunnel. Don't just quickly dig one.
Yeah, that'd be wrong, wouldn't it? Because we're not going to. No. Right. As ever, subscribe, comment, and all that jazz. And Happy New Year, and we will see you next week.